Hello everyone. In this video I'm going to be talking about 3 ways to activate your parasympathetic nervous system. That is known as your rest and digest system. That is the opposing system to your sympathetic nervous system, which is commonly referred to as your fight or flight response. So if you have PTSD and you have a dysregulated nervous system, here are 3 ways to get out of that fight or flight response. Get yourself relaxed. So if you've watched my other video on how to permanently regulate your nervous system, how to permanently heal it, how to permanently fix it, you'll know that these are some of the things we're going to need to do in order to create a new normal, right, in our bodies. We're going to sense and we're going to pay attention to when our sympathetic nervous system is starting to be activated, when our physiology is starting to be activated, when we're starting to feel anxious, when we're starting to feel stressed, and then we're going to bring ourselves back down. We're going to establish a new, what I call a new normal, right? The new normal, the new baseline. I talk about it like RPMs. Normally with PTSD, your RPMs, your idle point of your engine has been increased, right? Instead of idling at, let's say 700 RPMs, where like around where most cars idle, you're idling up around 4,000, right? So we got to get that idle point down. We got to establish a new normal. So we're going to use some of these techniques to help do that, to help create a new normal, while we're also working on permanently recalibrating our system using meditation, yoga, and possibly neurofeedback. So the first way to activate your parasympathetic nervous system is through breathing. So inhaling stimulates your sympathetic nervous system, your fight or flight response. Exhaling stimulates your parasympathetic nervous system. So what you want to do is a relatively short, big inhale followed by a slow, long exhale, and that will have a calming effect. Other types of breathing work too. So like one technique is what's known as circle breathing. So the idea is that it's like 3 seconds inhale, 3 seconds pause, 3 seconds exhale, 3 seconds pause, 3 seconds inhale, 3 seconds pause, 3 seconds exhale, 3 seconds pause, and so on and so forth. And I kind of drew that as a circle, or as a square, but you get the idea, right? You can do it as 4 seconds or 5 seconds or however long you want to. That can also be a relatively effective technique. You know, experiment with these things and see what works for you. Bonus tip, one thing that I started doing, I think unconsciously, and then I wondered about it and I realized, okay, so there's this, what's called the Valsalva maneuver. And so you use it to pressurize your ears, and it basically looks like this. You've done it before, right? If you're in a car driving in the mountains or on a plane or whatever, and you need to pop your ears, right? You can plug your nose and you push and you kind of bear down like you're trying to poop, right? And what happens as you increase that pressure in your chest is that actually stimulates your parasympathetic nervous system. So you can combine that with breathing, and it kind of looks like this, and I'm going to feel stupid doing it, but whatever. So I'm maintaining that pressure in my chest while I'm exhaling. So you build up the pressure and then you purse your lips and you slowly let the air out, kind of like you're deflating like an air mattress or a balloon or something, right? And so you're exhaling while you're creating that internal pressure in your chest. And so it's like a double whammy for your parasympathetic nervous system. You'll kind of look stupid doing it, but if you're in your car or you're laying in bed or whatever, like, who cares? All right, the second way you can stimulate your parasympathetic nervous system is with hot baths or hot water in general. So hot showers work. I like hot baths. I took a lot of hot baths. I'm almost embarrassed to admit that there were periods where I was taking like 4 or 5 hot baths a day. And it's so effective because you'll be like super worked up, right? But as soon as you get in that hot water, it's like, boom, you're in your parasympathetic nervous system. And so it's actually really useful to pay attention to how your body's feeling, how you're thinking, how you're feeling, all those different things before you get in the bath, and then like 10 or 20 seconds after you get in the bath, once you've calmed down. And one of the things that I've experienced quite a bit is if I'm really, to the degree that I've been like triggered and I'm worked up and I'm feeling really anxious, right? When I get in the bath, I'll be hit with this like wave of anxiety that like wells up out of me from somewhere. But you just kind of breathe through that, just breathe it away. Breathe it away. Inhale the clean air, exhale the anxiety, blow the anxiety away from you. And just push away the anxiety and just get rid of it, let it go. And it's interesting because that same thing will happen. It's very, very common to have that on like come up on like psilocybin. As the psilocybin is coming on, like say 20, 30 minutes after you've taken the mushrooms, you'll have this big wave of anxiety hit you, and you just breathe through it like that. And I think it's the same I don't know. I think it's the same thing. It's almost like all the anxiety that you've been generating in different parts of your body or your being or your essence, however that works. It's like it all wells up to the surface so you can get, and you get rid of it, right? And so I think that's what's happening when you get in the bath like that, is you go from being really triggered and anxious and all this anxiety is building, building, building. And then you get in the bath and all of a sudden you feel it all well up and you breathe it away. And then you're like, it's a lot better, right? And you pay attention to things like how your body feels. You pay attention to like the thing that you were just like really worried about and you thought was like a really big deal. All of a sudden, like you realize it wasn't. And you're like, oh, okay. So when I'm worked up, this is how I think about things, as opposed to when I'm calm, this is how I think about things. And that way you can start to see that you see the world in two different ways. You start like those feelings of like fear, panic, anxiety, even just like having your sympathetic nervous system triggered will shift the way that you see reality. And so as you pay attention to those differences, you can start to choose consciously like which one you want to be in, right? Like how do you really, what do you want to consider like your baseline, your normal, right? Bonus tip for this one, if you're going to use a lot of hot baths or hot showers, invest in some moisturizer, because your skin will get really dried out and itchy, and then you're like itching at night, and then that can mess with your sleep and everything. So just make sure you're staying moisturized. Another pro tip, and I know that for you dedicated infantry combat killers out there, this one's going to kind of feel a little funny maybe, but bath bombs. And I'm going to throw up a really super simple recipe for bath bombs on the screen. You can just screenshot this with your phone, so you can just like refer to it back later, like look through your pictures instead of having to come back to this video. Although maybe I should leave it in the video, then I get more views, right? Whatever. Screenshot it. So, and what you do is you just mix this up. You don't have to like make them as like bath bombs. You can if you want to. But what I would do is I would just make them every time before I get in a bath, not every time, but when I was going to use one, I just had like a stainless steel bowl, and I pour the ingredients into the bowl, right? The baking soda and the citric acid. And then I'd mix that up, and then I'd add in a little bit of oil, like a tablespoon of like almond oil or coconut oil or whatever is going to be good for your skin. And I'd mix that up, and then I'd add in whatever essential oils. And the essential oils and that way you can add whatever you want for that bath, right? And so, and I know like for you guys out there, like you're thinking like, I don't want to take, what do I need bath bombs for? And it's like, well, for one, it's going to feel a lot better on your skin. The bath is going to feel a lot more enjoyable. And the different smells, like there are masculine scents, like rosemary, frankincense, vetiver, sandalwood. These are masculine smells. And so you can have a very masculine bath, right? And you can also use things like, you can buy like the big thing of cinnamon at Costco for like $5, and you can add like a half a cup of cinnamon to or a cup of cinnamon to your bath. There's a lot of different things you can do, and you can kind of experiment with this. I mean, I like to do, sometimes I'd mess around and I'd put like vanilla and orange essential oils. I make like a dreamsicle bath. It's nice, you know? And the real reason I'm including this whole bath bomb thing is like one of the things that we're going to have to do for moral injury, and I'm going to talk about that when I get around to finally making that video, but it's like we have to repair the relationship that we have with ourselves. And so if we can do things, act out our own concern and care and love for ourselves by doing things like, you know, basically self-care, right? So giving yourself a nice bath is something that will kind of reinforce that idea or show to yourself that you have value, that you have worth, that you deserve nice things, right? And also another pro tip, if you're going to be using the bathtub 4 or 5 times a day, you're probably going to want to like clean it. Toilet bowl cleaner, don't use the brush that you use for the toilet, but the toilet bowl cleaner with the bleach is really nice to like disinfect the bathtub with, right? So just some pro tips from an expert bath taker. And then the third way to stimulate your parasympathetic nervous system is through stimulating your vagus nerve. And your vagus nerve makes up 75% of 75% of your parasympathetic nervous system. And I honestly like didn't really realize how important and valuable of a tool this was until like I had already kind of gotten to the point where I already had my tools and techniques and I'd already done most of the work that I needed to do, or a lot of it. So I'm not super familiar with all the different ways. So what I'm going to do is just link a bunch of videos that I found that I thought were good and useful on different ways to stimulate your vagus nerve. One way that I do use is, because it comes out of the back of your head here, I think on the left side, what I'll do is when I try to spend 5 to 10 minutes doing like a stretching kind of yoga routine before bed. And I found that really, really, really helps with sleep. And I'm actually going to make a video just about that because, man, that was like another one of my secret weapons. Like literally, if I just spent 5 or 10 minutes like stretching and breathing and kind of like getting the tension out of my body and getting the tension out of my legs before bed, I'd get an extra hour or 2 of sleep. It was that big of a deal. And one of the things that I started doing was I'd also foam roll as part of that. And what I would do at the end is they make different kinds of foam rollers. Some of them are like really hard. Some have like ridges and everything. But like the one that I like to use is smooth and it's kind of soft. It's hard enough that it gets in there in the muscle, you know, and the tendons and the tissues. But it has some give to it, you know. And I'll just like put my head on it. And I'll lay on the floor and just like basically relax and breathe, basically meditating. And I'll roll my head around and give the back of my head like a massage with the foam roller. And that will stimulate the vagus nerve here on the back of my head. And man, after like 5 minutes of that, I'm just like, oh, this feels so nice. Why can't I feel like this all the time? Right? And so that's the third way. And I'm sure that there are others. I'll make maybe like more videos about this, but those three I really want to just inform people about because they're really effective tools. So hopefully you're finding these videos useful and interesting. Thanks for watching.